Are you sensing a powerful connection but stuck in silence? Do you feel him on a soul level, yet wonder why nothing's moving forward? As the divine feminine, you awaken first. You feel it, you know it. But still, the reunion stays just out of reach. Why? Because knowing isn't the same as embodying. And without embodiment, even the deepest truth can leave you feeling lost, waiting, and misunderstood. Today we're pulling back the curtain on the one mistake nearly every divine feminine makes on this path. Not from weakness, but from a sacred devotion that hasn't yet learned to turn inward. You'll learn how this hidden energy block forms, how it delays union without you realizing it, and how to shift back into your true alignment. This isn't a lecture, it's a liberation. By the time this video ends, you'll stop waiting and start living. You'll see that you were never meant to hold space endlessly, hoping he catches up. Instead, you'll reclaim your power, shift your frequency, and embody the love you've always been. From this space, union isn't chased, it's attracted, and your journey becomes one of magnetism, not martyrdom. If you've ever asked, why hasn't he come back? This is the clarity you've been seeking. Watch this video all the way through, because one realization can change everything. And if you're ready to step out of the waiting room and into your full radiance, type, I choose embodiment over expectation in the comments, and let the shift begin. Number 1. Chasing energy and falling out of alignment. In the beginning stages of the twin flame journey, one of the most common yet quietest ways the divine feminine loses her grounding is through the energy of chasing. This isn't always something visible. Not every chase looks like reaching out, texting, or calling. Often, it's internal. It's the spinning thoughts, the unshakable obsession, the yearning to decode every sign and synchronicity, the endless seeking for reassurance from the universe that he still feels it too. Even when there's no action, her energy is leaning forward, reaching for a connection that, in truth, may not yet be ready to fully anchor in the physical. Because she feels love so intensely and spiritually, the divine feminine finds it difficult, sometimes nearly impossible, to detach. When communication goes silent or the divine masculine pulls away, it often triggers deep-rooted fear. That fear then disguises itself as intuition, as urgency, as a sacred calling to act. She may tell herself, love takes courage, or this is my inner knowing. But underneath those justifications is often a buried sense of panic. And panic, no matter how noble it may appear, is not love. It is the energetic voice of lack. Acting from this space of fear subtly alters the entire energetic architecture of the twin flame connection. The natural polarity begins to shift. In this divine dynamic, the feminine is not meant to chase. She is the magnet, the still center. Her power is not in pursuit, but in presence. The moment she begins chasing, even through thought and emotion, she unconsciously sends out a vibration of unrest. And because the divine masculine by design responds to energy rather than words, he retreats, not as punishment, but as a reflection of the imbalance she now radiates. This pursuit may look like devotion. It may feel like effort born of love. But the universe does not listen to stories. It listens to frequency. And when the frequency is driven by anxiety, urgency, or emotional dependency, the sacred container of the connection becomes clouded. Yet the moment she becomes aware of this, when she catches herself in the act of overreaching and gently asks, am I moving from stillness or from fear? Everything shifts. In choosing to breathe, to pause, to regulate, she reclaims her sacred position. And from that place of peace, she becomes magnetic once again. It is in her surrender, not her striving, that love finds the space to flow. It is in her stillness that she becomes the invitation. And when her vibration returns to truth, the dance of divine reunion begins again, not from force, but from flow. Number 2, reclaiming her power, no longer making him the center. One of the most common and quietly devastating missteps the divine feminine makes is placing the divine masculine at the center of her inner world. This isn't always obvious. It can look like devotion, like unconditional love, like spiritual loyalty. But beneath it often lies an unconscious pattern, making him the sun around which her entire emotional universe orbits. When this happens, she slowly forgets the deeper reason her soul chose this path. She didn't come here just to love him. She came to awaken, to expand, to rise into her full divine expression. She came to embody the sacred feminine in her fullness, not to shrink herself for a love that isn't ready. When she hands over her sense of worth, her emotional stability, and her future to his awakening, she inadvertently puts her life on pause. Her joy becomes conditional. Her creativity begins to fade. Her mission dims under the weight of waiting. But this is not sacred union. This is spiritual dependency wrapped in the disguise of loyalty. And the longer she waits, watches, and withholds her light from herself, the further she drifts from the very reunion she craves. The universe cannot reward self-abandonment, even when it's done in love's name. True sacred union is not a destination. It is the inevitable outcome when both souls, masculine and feminine, are rooted in their own growth, their own healing, their own wholeness. It's not built on waiting rooms and spiritual surveillance. It's birthed through inner devotion and self-honoring. The most powerful question she can ask herself is this: what would my life look like if I stopped waiting? That one question doesn't just shift her mindset, it ignites her radiance. It calls her home. Loving herself isn't a betrayal of the connection. It's the completion of it. It doesn't mean she loves him less. It means she finally loves herself enough to no longer starve for crumbs while her own banquet sits untouched. It means she turns her energy to a purpose, creativity, sisterhood, healing, joy, toward the life her soul came to live. She treats her heart with the same sacredness she once reserved only for him. She becomes a vessel of divine light, not because she hopes he sees it, but because it's who she truly is. And ironically, miraculously, it's in this glow that he begins to feel her. Not her waiting, not her ache, but her wholeness. And that is what calls him home. Not the pull of her pain, but the magnetism of her embodiment. Number 3, the sacred purpose of separation, from pain to preparation. Separation is perhaps the most misinterpreted and emotionally charged phase of the twin flame journey. To the heart, it feels like abandonment. To the ego, it feels like rejection. To the soul, however, it is sacred space. Not a detour, but a necessary corridor to transformation. This stage isn't a punishment for loving too much or a sign that something is broken. It's a divine recalibration, a spiritual pause designed to make room for healing, for clarity, and for the shedding of illusions that cannot coexist with true union. Many times, the divine feminine awakens first. She recognizes the connection on a soul level, feels its depth even through silence, and naturally reaches for more. But when the divine masculine pulls back, goes silent, or appears to retreat, it can feel deeply personal, like betrayal, abandonment, or emotional rejection. Her mind races to interpret the absence, spinning narratives of failure or unworthiness. But the true error is not in feeling the pain. It's in assuming the pain means the love was never real. In truth, separation is not the enemy of union. It is its sacred prerequisite. Without distance, there would be no mirror to show the hidden wounds still waiting to be healed. No time for individual growth. No space for each soul to remember their power apart from the other. This pause is divinely timed. It strips away false attachments and codependent patterns. It cracks open the heart not to break it, but to expand it. It asks the feminine to look inward, to rediscover who she is when she's not waiting for him to return. When she stops seeing separation as a delay and starts treating it as sacred initiation, everything begins to shift. Her focus returns to herself. Her power returns to the present. She no longer waits for love. She becomes it. She no longer resists the quiet. She listens to what it reveals. The illusion dissolves, and with it, the suffering caused by trying to force timing that isn't aligned. The feminine begins to rise, not in spite of the separation, but because of it. This is where true alignment begins, because the universe does not respond to longing. It does not respond to panic, fear, or desperation. It responds to energy that is whole, present, and rooted in self-honor. And there is nothing that accelerates alignment faster than a woman who stops fighting the season she's in and chooses instead to trust it. When she honors the space between them as purposeful rather than painful, she becomes a magnet for all that is meant for her. Separation, then, is not the end of the love story. It is the sacred beginning of becoming whole, so that love can be real, reciprocal, and enduring when it finally returns. If you've made it this far, it's a sign that your soul is ready to shift, ready to see separation not as a curse, but as a sacred invitation to rise. This journey isn't easy, and your courage to walk through it with open eyes and an open heart deserves to be honored. Take a moment to reflect. What has separation taught you about yourself? How have you grown in the silence? We'd love to hear your story in the comments, whether it's a single sentence or a whole chapter. Or if you're not ready to share yet, simply type this affirmation below to claim your healing. I honor this season as sacred and trust the love that's unfolding within me. Your voice may be the one that lights the way for someone else still finding their strength. Number 4, the illusion of control, surrendering to divine timing. Time, so rigid, so human. It is the illusion we grasp when the soul's deeper knowing feels out of reach. But the soul doesn't operate on a calendar. It doesn't rush to meet a deadline. And yet, in her longing, the divine feminine often becomes consumed by the question, when? When will he come back? When will reunion happen? When will this ache finally end? These questions may begin as innocent curiosity, but over time, they evolve into desperation. Signs, synchronicities, and readings, once meant to reassure her spirit, slowly turn into emotional crutches. Not affirmations, but pacifiers. Not guidance, but a grasp for control. And it's this grasping, this unconscious need to manage the outcome, that creates the very resistance she longs to dissolve. The truth is hard, but liberating. The twin flame journey is not linear. It cannot be rushed or predicted. It unfolds in divine timing, a rhythm orchestrated not by human will, but by soul alignment. Every time she pushes, presses, or tries to pull the future closer with force, she slips out of alignment. She doesn't realize that the more she tries to chase the outcome, the more it evades her. Not because the universe is punishing her, but because her energy is no longer anchored in trust. It is anchored in fear, and fear cannot call in sacred love. Union isn't something to chase, it is something to become. It is not the prize at the end of perfect behavior or spiritual performance. It is the natural result of inner embodiment. The feminine's role is not to wait passively, nor to push impatiently, but to surrender with power, to soften into trust without abandoning her strength. This is not a powerless surrender. It is a conscious, radiant trust that says, I do not need to know when, because I know who I'm becoming. She must pause and ask herself the real question. Am I trying to manifest my twin flame, or am I becoming the version of me who is already in union? Because the moment she begins to live from that version, the version who already holds peace, joy, purpose, and wholeness, something sacred begins to shift. Time loses its grip. Waiting transforms into becoming. And in that becoming, she enters her true magnetic field. Not the field that tries to attract love from emptiness, but the field that radiates love from overflow. The less she clings to time, the more timeless her energy becomes. And it's in that timeless space, in that stillness that doesn't chase or beg or plead, that union begins to take root. Not just the outer union she's prayed for, but the inner union that makes everything else inevitable. Because when she no longer fears the delay, she no longer delays the destiny. And from that place, love arrives, not a moment early, not a breath too late, but precisely when it's meant to. Imagine a woman named Ilara, deep in the midst of her twin flame awakening. For months, she clung to every sign, every repeating number, every dream, every tarot reading, hoping they would confirm he was coming back. She booked readings weekly, scrolled through spiritual videos obsessively, and even altered her daily routine around what psychics told her. She wasn't living, she was waiting. And the more she waited, the more anxious and disconnected she became. One day, exhausted by the emotional roller coaster, she stood still, really still, and asked herself, what if I stopped trying to control the timing? What if I started living like the woman I know I'm becoming? From that moment on, Ilara began to redirect her focus inward. She picked up her old journal, enrolled in a creative workshop, and slowly returned to the things that lit her up before the separation. She stopped seeking confirmation and started creating transformation. And as she healed, her energy softened. Her heart became fuller. Weeks later, without forcing or expecting it, he reached out, not to complete her, but to meet the wholeness she had already chosen. Ilara's story reminds us, union is not something we manifest by force. It is something we prepare for by becoming. Number 5. Ignoring inner wounds and avoiding spiritual work. One of the most profound yet often neglected missteps on the twin flame path is bypassing the inner healing journey. Many divine feminines become so captivated by the love they feel, so consumed by the intensity of the connection, that they overlook the deeper truth. Love is not the destination, it is only the beginning. Love is the seed, but healing is the soil in which that love must be planted. Without tending to the inner landscape, the seed cannot grow. The twin flame connection is not simply here to comfort the soul. It exists to awaken it, to strip away illusions, and to bring every buried wound to the surface. This is not punishment. It is sacred reflection. The pain that arises is not always from this lifetime. It is ancient. It echoes from childhood wounds, generational traumas, and karmic cycles that span lifetimes. Still, in the discomfort of that pain, many divine feminines unconsciously reach outward instead of inward. They chase signs, pull tarot cards, and follow updates about their twin flame, hoping for reassurance or clarity. While these actions may seem like spiritual engagement, they often serve as subtle forms of avoidance. They become distractions from the one thing that can truly shift the energy: inner transformation. Because union is not something to manifest or chase, it is something that must be prepared for energetically, and that preparation begins with becoming whole from within. Wholeness does not come from knowing your twin flame loves you. It comes from healing the parts of you that believe love must be earned, that fear being abandoned, or that carry the quiet shame of never feeling enough. Healing is not a single moment. It's a lifelong commitment to meet yourself with compassion. It is the courage to sit with the discomfort, to listen to your pain without rushing to fix it, to nurture your inner child with softness rather than self-judgment. It's about choosing presence over performance, honesty over distraction, and self-love over codependency. When the divine feminine does this, when she turns inward and embraces the very parts she once rejected, her energy begins to shift. No longer does she reach outward in desperation or longing. Instead, she radiates authenticity, confidence, and peace. She becomes a lighthouse, not because she is seeking someone to return, but because she is home within herself. And this, more than anything, is magnetic. Not in a way that forces anything to return, but in a way that naturally draws in what vibrates on the same frequency. Truth does not chase. Truth simply shines. And everything meant for her will find its way back, not to fill her, but to meet her in her fullness. In the sacred stillness where longing once lived, something beautiful begins to unfold, not in the waiting, but in the remembering. The divine feminine's journey is not about chasing someone else to complete her, but about reclaiming the love she already is. Her deepest mistake was never that she loved too much, but that she placed that love outside herself, hoping to be chosen, seen, or saved. But this path was never a detour away from her. It has always been a divine invitation to return to the heart of who she is. She is not here to plead for attention or prove her worth. She is here to be, to embody the essence of unconditional love, to radiate with truth and tenderness even in solitude. This isn't the love that clings, it's the love that frees, the kind that doesn't chase, doesn't wait, doesn't shrink, but stands tall, rooted in wholeness. A love that whispers, "I am enough," even here, especially here. And when she rises like this, not louder, but deeper, not harder, but clearer, everything around her begins to shift. The divine masculine feels it too, not from pressure, but from presence, not from fear, but from the magnetic pull of a soul who has finally remembered herself. Union then becomes not the goal, but the reflection, not a prize, but a mirror of the love already found within. So to every divine feminine walking this path, you were never waiting for him, you were waiting for you. And now, the wait is over. Let this truth settle into your bones. I am not waiting to be chosen. I have already chosen myself. If this message resonates with you, type this affirmation in the comments to anchor your transformation and inspire others on this path. Don't forget to like this video if it moved you, share it with a soul sister who needs this reminder, and explore the next video below, because your awakening is just beginning, and the next step is waiting for you there.